Yeah.
Yes,
But if it allows you
I'll
to
answer you,
have
Maria.
more
I'm ready.
robust offerings for children.
This meeting, please come to order. And I will explain to people here as well as in TV land that we have changed our format a little bit, that now the school board will meet, or at least a quorum of the school board will meet here at 6:30 in order to review the manifests. And for those that don't know what that is, those are the bills of the system. And at 7 o'clock, we will continue the regular meeting, which was opened at 6:30, with the rest of the business items. So that's what happened. And my computer has done something strange.
Call to order, pledge allegiances first.
We have called to order, so we will now pledge allegiance.
To pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, and if there's no objection, I would like to adjust the agenda and add a public comment at the end. Seeing no objection, we will do that. So now we have public comment.
David Taylor from Durham. Tonight you are reviewing several revised policies in Section B on board governance. These policies affect the right to know of the citizens of this district by determining what activities of the board are done in public. As a strong advocate of the right to know, I wrote a detailed letter to you raising specific concerns. There is too much detail to go into it all here. I hope you have had a chance to read the details and that you will seriously consider my suggestions and strengthen these policies instead of weaken them. Here are just a few examples of the kinds of things I noted in my letter. For policy BAA on evaluation of the board, the proposed changes replace the word board with the phrase individual board members. This turns a board activity into an individual one. It turns a public activity into a private one. Shouldn't policy encourage the board to work as a group? Shouldn't it foster discussion in public instead of discouraging it? For policy BBAA on school board member authority, the proposed changes remove a critical phrase saying that the board may act only by a majority vote at a duly posted meeting. There was no other phrase that clearly states the requirement for an action to be by a majority vote. After a year of decisions at illegal meetings where the board never took any votes, it is wrong to remove such a clear statement. We need the policies to make it harder to repeat the mistakes of last year, not make it easier. Lastly, though it's not strictly a right-to-know issue, I think it is wrong to put the student board member on notice that he or she only serves at the whim of the rest of the board by adding conditional phrases to policy BBBF on student member of the school board. At any time, the board can vote to suspend the policy and remove the student member. That does not need to be explicitly stated in the policy, and to add it now turns 10 ear to the animosity generated by the board with the student body last year. Again, there are many more details like these in the proposed policies that I hope you will reconsider. Perhaps you could hold one of the proposed public discussion forums on these right-to-know policies. Thank you again.
Thank you, David. Does anybody object if I give an answer to this? Our new process is that we bring forward for first reading those policies that we are reviewing. For people to ask questions about it and give input, and you certainly did, and I appreciate that. And then it goes back to the policy committee, which will consider your input and anybody else's input, board members, whatever. And it will come back in Phoenix kind of way, I'm sure. And I thought I was so clever. The trick with communication is that, or for me, is that I always know what I'm saying. The problem is that the listener or the person I'm addressing doesn't always hear what I intended. And certainly in your case, what are very clever, good intentions might have to be reconsidered so that it's crystal clear from the other side. So if that makes you feel any better, I have no idea what I actually said right now, but sounded good.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Kay Morgan from Durham. I also wanted to mention a couple of things about in the policies that are in the backup tonight, especially the student member of the board policy. I happen to be the student council advisor back when this policy was originally adopted by the board in 1987. And I think that for 25 years we've had excellent student representation. We work hard to engage our learners, as our mission suggests, and part of that is engaging them in the governance and leadership of the school, whether it's here at the school board table or at the student senate. And I think I would just like to express a very strong preference for the original policy, which clearly states that the board, in the first paragraph, the board recognizes the value of having a non-voting student representative to the board. And that has now been rewritten to say the Oyster River Cooperative Board may choose to add one or more student members from the district high school. Now, to me, that leaves it pretty up in the air. Is the board going to choose to have a representative next year? 1, 2, 3, how many, and at what point? So I think the original policy really set out a very clear understanding that the representative is non-voting, that it will be, the person will be elected by the student body at the high school and will be seated for one term. And also it included in the original policy that the representative shall be a student in good standing. And to me, that would suggest that at any point, if the student were not in good standing, whether because of grades or some other kind of issue that came up, that the board or the student body would have a right to kind of recall that representative. So I don't think that, I don't like to see this sort of power shift to the board on that score. And maybe I'm not interpreting it in the way that it was intended. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that under the ethics policy, BCA, that I noticed that there's no consequence listed for a board member who violates ethics. And I wonder if there would be some consideration of thinking about a consequence so that if a person violates these ethics, what's going to happen? Some of them apply, some of the statements in that code of ethics apply also to, I believe, administrators and staff members, and I think that under some of those, if there were violations, that person might be summarily dismissed from their position. So I think you might give some consideration to possible consequences for violation of ethics. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Superintendent's actions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As continuation of making sure that each town has a truant officer, I would like to propose to you Chief Joseph McGann, who is the Chief of Police in Madbury, who's willing to act in that capacity.
Krista.
Make a motion to approve Chief McGann, Madbury, truant officer.
Thank you.
Second.
Seconded by Ann. Discussion? Hearing none. Could we have a show of hands, please? 7 in the affirmative, motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also would propose to you that we allow a school food service worker a leave of absence from August 28th to December 31st for personal reasons.
Ann?
I make a motion that we approve the leave of absence from 8/28/12 to 12/31/12 for a Oyster River Cooperative School District food service worker.
Second.
That was moved by Ann, seconded by Krista. Discussion? Hearing none, could we have a show of hands? And that's 7 in the affirmative, motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And then my final motion to the board would be a continuation of assuring that we have quality coaches for our students at the high school and middle school, and I nominate staff for those positions. And the list has been provided to you. Does the chair wish me to read it into the record, or?
If it's okay with everybody, if he makes it available to the secretary?
Well,
Krista?
make a motion to approve the slate of ORHS athletic coaches and advisors.
Moved by
And
Doing both.
You wanna-
ORMS.
Are you going to do both of them?
Yes.
Fine. ORHS and ORMS.
seconded by Ann. Moved by Krista, seconded by Ann. Discussion? Hearing none, could we have a show of hands, please? And that's 7 in the affirmative, motion carries. Board action items.
Thank you.
Excuse me,
Yep.
is that the advisors? Are we voting on the advisors as well?
Yes.
Was that the motion?
Yeah, coaches and advisors.
Okay.
Thank you, Tom. Going on.
Motion for superintendent to enter into an agreement with Siemens to do an energy project for the middle school, Massway, and Mohammed.
So Sue is here as well, and I'll just kind of introduce this. If the board has any questions, we certainly can direct them to both of us.
Maria, do you need a second? You
I
made the
don't have
motion,
a
right?
motion yet,
Oh, I
no.
thought you made the motion, sorry.
I just read. You moved?
Sure.
Moved by Krista, seconded by Ann.
Great, thank you. Siemens did the work here at the high school in terms of balancing our heating system and reviewing some of the ways that we could create efficiencies here, and that work was completed this summer. Sue and I met with Siemens, and we were incredibly impressed with the work that they did, and we're confident that we will achieve the savings that we all agreed to. And just as a side note, we did get a letter from New Hampshire Public Services because they were concerned that our energy had dropped so dramatically that something was amiss. True story. And we informed them that we had been working with Siemens to address our needs here at the high school, and they were duly impressed. We do have the capacity under policy to go with a preferred vendor, and since Siemens has proven themselves at this facility, we would like them to do an analysis of our potential savings at the middle school and the 2 elementary schools. They also have some other ideas where they could implement some savings here. The money is in the budget, and we would like to move forward with our arrangement with Siemens by asking them to do those audits at the 3 other schools. Sue, do you have anything you want to add?
I just have a question. There was, when Siemens was here, they brought up that there was money available for, that they would kick back to us. Would we make it under that window to get that money?
These projects would also qualify, and part of this process is to do the analysis and submit it to see if we are eligible for what they call pay for performance, yes. So that would be part of it.
Kickback is.
Yeah, probably.
There are
Choice of
incentives,
words.
grants, yes.
Incentive. Use that word.
Communicating here.
We should also add, Sue, that Siemens has done this in concert with a local engineering firm here in Durham, and it's been a very successful relationship. And the fact is that through both of their efforts, the local firm, Sue, is
AEC.
AEC. They have managed to, activate this rebate energy audit fund that you're referring to, Al. that will help, it's going to pay for over half of the work that happened at the high school, right?
Let's see, the tally for that, yes, it was 248,000, and I think you have a request to withdraw 132, which is the balance from that.
So it's a pretty amazing arrangement, and we wouldn't have got there if we didn't partner with the local engineering firm as well as Siemens.
Ann?
Following our bidding policy, when we have work bids that exceed $10,000, we put them out to bid and we get 3 bids. I understand that this system is considered somewhat proprietary.
Correct.
That this is your preferred vendor, that if they have a relationship with submitting this information to quickly get these rebates or more effectively get them than maybe another vendor would. But I think that we need to be transparent to our community on all these levels, why we're not getting 3 bids,
Yeah.
why
And
we're
I
going
think that's
with
an
one.
important question. I'm glad that you asked it, and so we can address it to the public. If we went to different vendors for each of the schools, over time, the efficiency would be lost because we'd be calling in different vendors to support the control units and the mechanisms that create the efficiency. Where we have gone with, we made the commitment to go to Siemens, and they have done the job that we asked them to do. It makes sense over the long term for us to maintain Siemens controls at this point. So when we need support, we call one company, not 4. And so that's why we're recommending this stuff tonight, and it does fit into our policy.
Thank you.
So in the Siemens, I know we're responsible for a lot of the your HVAC systems here at the high school. Is that similar at the middle school and elementary schools? I thought that was a different, that wasn't Siemens.
We currently do not use Siemens, and what we're saying to you tonight is we want to be using Siemens.
So
that we
that
have
would
one.
change that over
Correct.
after that, okay.
And that will create, over time, the efficiency of maintenance as well as, continued contractual obligations that we create with the company.
When Siemens proposed, did they factor in these efficiencies and quantify them in terms of, certainly there's some advantages having one point of contact and knowing one system, et cetera. So are those quantifiable for our district?
Not yet. The very job we're asking them to do, Megan, is to do the audit that would demonstrate the savings to the board.
Right.
And once we have that audit, then the next step would be, do we want to enter into a relationship to do the work like we did here at the high school? So it's a 2-phase process.
Okay, thanks.
Did we have the $240,000 in the budget for, it wasn't in the budget, but we had taken it, I think, out of the surplus, right, to pay for the energy efficiency improvements? Is that
No,
what we did? How did we pay for that?
That's coming out of your expendable trust funds.
Oh, okay. So we had originally said we were going to go up to $240,000, but we didn't reach that number.
No, we
so-
originally said 175,
Okay.
I think, but we only have 150.
Okay.
It actually came in at 132.
Okay,
So
so
we
we only
still
need
have
to
monies
withdraw
left
what
in
we need to
those
pay for
funds,
it.
right.
Great.
Further questions? Discussion? Hearing none, could we have a show of hands, please? 7 in the affirmative.
Thanks.
Motion carries.
Thank you. The next motion is to read the list of B policies into the record. As Madam Chair stated earlier, reading them into the record merely means that you have provided public notice that these policies are under review. It will be the next board meeting where the board would be asked to take action. In the meantime, you are in the process of eliciting public comment, much like we heard earlier. So tonight, it's merely setting the record for the public that we are discussing these policies.
Do I have to read them all?
No. Just
Thank you.
No, you can, do you want me to do it?
Yes.
Make a motion to approve for first read policy BAA, evaluation of the board, BB, school board legal status, BBA, school board powers and duties, BBAA, school board member authority, BBBE, unexpired term fulfillment, BBBF, student member of the board, BCA, student board member ethics, BCA-R, school board member authorization, BDE, committees and delegates, BDF, advisory committees to the board, BDA, organizational meetings to be deleted, BDB, board officers and board organization, BDD, board superintendent relationship, and BDD-R, superintendent job description.
And that was your motion?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Moved by Krista, seconded by Ann.
I'd like to talk a little bit about policy BBBF, the student member of the school board. I certainly think that this policy, new policy, is going in the right direction simply because the student representative gets a non-binding vote, which I suppose means a vote that doesn't count. So it goes on record, even though it's not technically a voice, it's certainly a step in the right direction for giving the kids a voice. At the same time, the language of the policy doesn't give the student body the power that I really think it does, or really think it needs. So I would really like it if the policy were amended to perhaps mention that one member of the student body will sit on the board, and that one member will be a student in good academic standing chosen by the student body.
Okay,
Thank you, John.
thank you. Thanks. It's helpful to the committee if we get input in writing so we can sit there and thumb through it and read it. But I think I'll remember yours.
I have a comment too on the same policy. And that is the last line that says the board reserves the right to discontinue the addition of the student member at any time. And it's such a menacing sounding way they go through that. I mean, that's, I think it, since we can make policy, it can be, but it's like, I envision like John sitting here and saying something, you know, like, I don't know, disparaging my Red Sox, and I have to you know, take a vote and have you kicked off and escorted immediately out of the room. So, at any rate, I just, you know, that line I think would be, you know, if we could say something, if you did something.
Put that in writing?
I will put that in writing and I will
Thank you.
send that to you.
Okay. A vote on the motion, please.
I have one more.
Oh, you do?
I think
That you're putting.
Oh, well, I have one more that I will put in writing, but I was just going to do it because it's public here. And that's policy BAA, which is evaluation of the board. And I see it was adopted in 1988, but I don't ever remember us at some point at the end of the year ever, you know, I mean, I was new, but there was no evaluation that did occur of the board. There was no looking at what our goals were. So
We did it in April, I mean in March.
So, and I guess going forward for us is we never really set, other than budgetarily, any goals. So I can't really tell if I can give myself a gold star or needs work in a year, because I don't really, I'm supposed to reflect on the goals and objectives that have been accomplished, but I don't really have any clear-cut goals to grade myself on. So I think that's something we're going to need to, if we're going to carry out that policy, we'll do this, and I will put that in writing.
Yeah.
I wonder, Madam Chair, if it might be beneficial to share with the audience that in the review of the policies, the process of this review is comparing our current policies to the New Hampshire School Board Association policies that are most similar, and that any language changes have largely been based on honoring what the New Hampshire School Board Association has proposed.
So, are we ready for a vote? No?
I just want to add another piece that might be helpful. Some of the policies had language that we came across that seemed to be more suitable to go into other policies. And some of those policies we have yet to review and put forth from the committee to the full board. So there was some of that, you know, will I think make itself, you'll find that out later, because we didn't get through all the B policies. I think this is about half, right? So more to come.
And I would just add to that the goal for everyone in the audience and in the public is that the board is committed to going through every single policy this year. And so this is just the very first bite at that, and we'll have many more as we go through the school year.
And every policy will not follow this process either. there will be policies on students and academics
Right,
that will take much more
much more.
input, public input, and what have you. So, are we ready to vote on this?
Does everyone have the New Hampshire School Board Association online database login information? Yes. Okay, you have it?
I'm not sure if I do or not.
We
Okay,
can
I'll
resend
send it
it.
to you,
Oh,
because
okay. Thank you,
that's
Krista.
important when you're looking through the policies, to be able to see the boilerplate from the New Hampshire School Board Association, because you'll see where the information comes from. So if you need it, just send me an email and I'll send it to you.
Thank you. Could we have a vote, please? 7 in the affirmative, motion carries. Motion to approve for withdrawal of scholarship trust funds.
Madam Chair, if I could just change one word in this motion. This actually should say, motion to approve withdrawal of the expendable trust fund. We're asking the board to support the authorization of withdrawal from the expendable trust fund, $132,050, for the specific purpose of funding the capital improvement project at Oyster River High School during the 2011-12 school year.
I'm sorry, could you tell me if instead of the withdrawal of scholarship funds?
It's expendable trust fund.
Expendable trust fund.
Thank you.
So this is for last year's?
Yes. This was the earlier conversation that Krista had asked the question about funding
Okay.
source.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Krista, seconded by Al. Discussion? Ann?
Quick synopsis, what that $132,000 did?
So if you join the podium, did a lot of good stuff.
The audience might be interested.
Yeah, that's a good point.
PSNH is calling us and not for money, it's a good thing.
What was that?
I said if PSNH is calling us and not because we owe them money.
No. Well, they don't, they like to see us reduce our energy, because there are times when they're stressed for supplying energy, so it's a good thing. It was a positive email, so. The entire project was $243,800. It included the retro commissioning of the Siemens system, variable frequency drives. Do you want me to list the amounts of each one, or just those? Demand-controlled ventilation, the energy management systems upgrades to the system. Remember, as you recall, the system was placed in like 2004, 2006. There had been no adjustments to that system for software purposes, so it included that. Start-stop time optimization of the existing system, and that's basically when you're in here, it's cool. When you leave, it's programmed so that it doesn't stay cool all night and we waste energy. So that was that. Interior and exterior lighting upgrades. Let's see if I can remember. We did the cafeteria, library, and outside lights. I believe those were the 3. We had one other. We were going to do the auditorium, but we couldn't make the right retrofits for those, so we didn't do those. And then it also included some miscellaneous monies for unexpected repairs and replacements. I've been told by them that there were more than enough that they needed to do, that we didn't have really a lot to cover, so they were just gracious and put those kind of things in. So that's the list.
And this 240?
3 of that 243, we received under the Pay for Performance program. We received, and we have received, a check from Pay for Performance in the amount of $107,600, and then Public Service provided a rebate of $4,150, leaving the net amount to come from the district of $132,50.
And our expectations are that our energy use.
The expectations from them, the projected savings was $91,000. And then at the end of this year, there's a benchmarking that we have to do. It's not like we can do this and they go away. They want us to report to them that, yes, you are maintaining this, yes, you are doing this. There'll be another incentive somewhere around $27,000, if all goes well.
Thank you very
So.
much.
So,
Money
Ian,
well spent.
to do kind of an illustrative example, prior to the recommissioning, the ventilators in the building were on 24/7. Building not occupied, the machines are working to refresh air when there's no occupancy. After the recommissioning, they come on when they're programmed or when the demand in the room requires it. Now, part of recommissioning it to make the building more efficient means that you've set a program in place that turns it on and off at prescribed times. Last week, Todd contacted me saying, Jim, I recognize we're trying to save money, but we're baking the teachers and students on the third floor. And through conversation with Todd and our maintenance supervisor and myself, we figured out a solution where, a very simple solution, during the days that we know it's going to hit the mid-80s and 90s, we opened the windows on the third floor, and I asked if that would mess up the system, and we were assured it wouldn't. On days when it's going to hit 90 plus, we actually will turn on the ventilators, override the system, and turn them on at like 2:30 in the morning so that we can get that cool air into the room. So, you know, we were very cognizant of student learning as well as the economy of the building. And I thought that that was resolved really well because Todd made us aware of it, and we figured out a couple of solutions that didn't throw the savings off balance, projected savings.
Last year, we installed a system in Massway where you could view the temperature of the room from a different place, like
Remotely.
exactly.
Mhm.
Do we have that ability at the high school as well?
Yeah, it's in fact, that's part of the controls they put in. Brian, our maintenance supervisor, who you've met, can see every room in this building, and if adjustments need to be made, he can do them, or we can have Siemens do them, so it's pretty sophisticated.
So on days where it's hot, say over 90 degrees, we could make it so that someone could be monitoring.
Exactly. That's
those
exactly
temperatures.
the situation we faced in I think it was Wednesday, wasn't it, Todd, where it was in the mid-90s that particular day when we started school, and we were able to override the system.
Okay.
Are we ready for the motion? All those in favor? 7 in the affirmative, motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
District reports.
The first report this evening is our first report from our Assistant Superintendent in charge of Curriculum and Instruction and Assessment. I'm honored to present Carolyn Eastman to you this evening in her first public forum, and putting the pressure on her. As just for background and to try to do what Ann helped me do in the last piece, Carolyn comes to us as a veteran teacher, educator, and 10 years working with the National Governors Association and the chief school officers from the country, and as a consultant, a national consultant on standards. So she comes to the district very well vetted, a great experience, and plus, she's a mom here in Oyster River. So that probably added all the credibility that she needed.
That's all I needed.
Carolyn?
Thank you, Jim. So I hope that all of you had an opportunity to look at some of the common questions that I had submitted prior to the meeting tonight. These are just a beginning, I think, to answer some commonly asked questions, but not nearly scratching the surface as we go forward in implementing the Common Core state standards. They are a national set of standards for math and English language arts at this point, soon to be science, and as always, unfortunately, social studies then follows. I'm not quite sure why social studies is at the end, and some of the social studies teachers could argue they feel the same way. But we have begun the work at Oyster River to implement Common Core. It began this summer with the beginnings of work that the elementary schools had done, some work at the middle school as well as the high school, and has evolved into work throughout the school year in very targeted, structured, small groups, professional development based on, in elementary schools, it's small grade level teams, working both on English language arts and mathematics during early release time. We've met smaller committees and leads on those Common Core groups and principals, as well as support staff, and how to make that a very worthwhile use of our time. And I think I'm a big advocate of structured time with measurable outcomes. I know that I've never heard an educator say that they had plenty of time and felt that not having outcomes is okay most of the time. So we are setting forth very structured work teams with specific topics in mind, with teachers assigned to each group, with goals for what they'd hope to accomplish, short-term goals for the year, but also long-term goals if they happen to embark on a project related to Common Core that may take more time. But we do want something accomplished at the end of every year. And that is being submitted not only to the principals, but also to myself and Jim, so that we're fully aware of to what degree we're implementing the Common Core. In 2014-15, in that year, in the spring, we will be assessed on a large-scale capacity through Smarter Balanced Assessment Consortium. It is the testing consortia that was chosen by the New Hampshire Department of Education. They chose it because it is a computer adaptive assessment. Meaning that a child takes the assessment and it queries, depending on how their response is to one particular item, it'll query another bank of items. So it gives us an idea of not just if they've met proficiency, but how well they've met proficiency and to what percentage of, or to what degree above proficient they may be in our district. One of the things that I'm really proud of in the district in the short period of time that I've been here is that in kind of as a hunch as a parent, I kind of had this idea of who our educators were in district and the people that were working and interacting with our children. And I'm going to read this because I don't want to missay it. But in true Oyster River fashion, the educators in the district have met this change in standards, which is never easy, as an opportunity for meaningful dialogue and professional reflection. I'm really excited about the opportunity that the Common Core provides in confirming many things that we already do well, but also providing an opportunity for new ideas and new ways for our students to interact and deeply engage with our content. And I think that is the key piece. If you look at the actual standards themselves, there aren't any new topics, nor do they look deeply complex. What it does come down to, and the challenge is what is expected of our students as they engage with these topics. Typically in the past, the majority, culturally, what we've done in the United States is a very traditional way of delivery of our content. And the Common Core is really encouraging us, and I think we already do this quite well at Oyster River. It's encouraging us to be creative. It's encouraging us to provide unique opportunities for our students to deeply engage and authentically be involved in our curriculum as opposed to contrived involvement. We're hoping that the activities and projects that we already have, we re-examine and reflect on where they can really meet the standards and meet them well. What fear there is in creativity is sometimes it comes off as being fluffy, if you will, for lack of a better word, and not as deeply entrenched in content. And that is one of the pieces that we're examining, and that the creativity that we see here in Oyster River and that we almost come to expect, this unique opportunity, creativity that's provided to our students, is also very steeped in educational content. And we have evidence to support how this unique opportunity really meets the standards, not just basically meeting them, but goes above and beyond meeting our standards. So as far as communication, this is the beginning communication of Common Core state standards. But it's, like I said, just the beginning. I've contacted Kathleen Young, and there will be a piece right on the front of the homepage called Core Standards, which you'll see there'll be links to resources, the standards themselves, frequently asked questions, and also some updates on what's happening in the district as far as core. I've also spoken with Allison Reingold, who is a professor at UNH. She's also a supervisor of interns at the middle school. She runs a course called the Educational Change, and looking to support our staff in helping out with providing interns from her class or students from her class and supporting some of the change that we'll be going through, meaningful change and wanting to be involved in the work. And let's see. I think that's it for me. One of the things, oh, do you have any questions? Sorry. Okay, I'm all done. No, okay. Do you have any questions?
Kristen.
Well, you already answered one of my questions about putting information up on the website. Will this document be part of that? Because
yes.
This was excellent. It explained a lot about the Common Core to me that I didn't quite understand. And then you had mentioned the assessment, when we do the assessment, what, in 2015, right?
Yes.
When are we doing that? Is that in the fall or the spring?
Spring.
And does everybody test in the spring?
Yes.
Of the whole nation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we're all testing and grading at the same time?
One of the beauties of, well, I say it's a beauty, but some people, Josh, our technology coordinator, might not think it's a beauty. It's an online assessment. So there will not be any paper copies. We don't have to worry as much about how we administer the assessment, that confidentiality piece that we always were questioning. And then this idea of that we have a locked, concealed room where all the assessment materials are under lock and key. The assessment is to be a computer-based assessment, which creates opportunities. Now our students, that whole idea of communicating their understanding and writing, often at times we felt as educators that was almost a negative impact because we knew they could communicate so much more effectively if they had the opportunity to keyboard. They will be asked to keyboard, they'll be using a mouse. Our challenge is to not only be ready as far as implementing the Common Core, but also to be ready as far as our capacity and our technology use and ability to test on a large scale, district-wide, effectively, and knowing that we have the capacity to do it well and not run into any kind of hiccup or glitch. So that's, Josh is already working on that and helping us kind of be as technology ready as we possibly can, going into a time that we've never tested online in a large scale assessment capacity before. So this will be the first. And what we hope is that a universal screening tool that we're hoping to implement district-wide is also online, that will help our students kind of prepare for this interactive environment of how we assess online, so it won't be, the Smarter Balance won't be the first opportunity our students are sitting in front of a computer taking a high-stakes assessment. We're hoping to provide multiple opportunities for them to interact in an assessment scenario to kind of work through what it is we need to do to help our students prepare for that type of environment. So,
thank you.
Is this an unfunded mandate?
Yes, I believe it.
Oh, okay. So,
When Smarter Balance sets the level, will they be setting the level of proficiency? You know, is it going to be using the same kind of categories, proficient? Is that going to be
They are using the same categories, but my understanding is that they'll be providing more information back to us as far as, you know, beyond, we have below proficient, at proficient, above proficient. They'll be providing a little more information in detail into that report than we're currently receiving. And that's what our hope is. And when I asked Tim Kurtz, who was, when he was currently at the New Hampshire Department of Education, why he chose Smarter Balanced, it was because of having an increased level of information and opportunity for us to really see where our kids were. PARC is the other assessment consortia, which is a norm reference test, which is kind of your typical large-scale assessment, which really doesn't give us a whole lot of information other than have they met, are they proficient. So we're trying to move beyond that.
I guess part of my question is that you have like tests now that measure proficiency.
Right.
And you're going to have proficiency determined by Smarter Balance, but they may not be equivalent, right? So that you may have, if people are looking at move from one test system to the other, you may have different numbers, and which shouldn't be interpreted as a decline. It's like a new ballgame.
Right. Well, they are saying that even though there's two different test consortia and two different types of assessment, what they're measuring and what they determine as proficient will be the same, or will be on par.
But it may not be equivalent to NECAP, though.
Right, correct.
So I guess my point is that there could be a narrative where, like, look, we were at 90% proficient and we're going to have 70% proficient, but you're talking about apples and oranges, two different things, right?
Right, right. Yeah. And, you know, one of the things that they will be able to do on a computer adaptive or just an online assessment is actually heighten the level of rigor that's we've ever been able to assess on a large-scale assessment. We were limited to what was accomplished on paper and pencil, to what degree we could really look at that higher level thinking skill or assess to what degree or what level. So Smarter Balance, if you have an opportunity, and that will be one of the resources I put out to all of you, they really have done a very good job at trying to be as transparent about item development, how they're going to be scoring, how they're determining rigor. And so it'll be interesting, and they talk about technologies, how technology will change the degree to what they determine is proficient. You know, now that they have kind of raised that, where that ceiling used to be for an assessment, they've now raised it even higher. It will be a different type of assessment, and what teachers typically said, they'll never be able to assess this, so, you know, we know that can only go so far on the assessment. All bets are off, I think, and we really need to learn the standards well and make sure our instruction, we've implemented them instructionally, and provide many, many opportunities for students to work with the standards so that when they approach an item on the assessment, they'll be successful because it's not novel. It's not a new or unique opportunity that they receive in their classrooms. So.
Oh.
You answered the first part of my question, that's computer-based and that we need to be prepared. Do we get to do a test run? I mean, I'm just trying to envision, you know what I mean? Like, do we set up our labs correctly? Do we have them in the right place? Because when we do this, the scores are going to count. And, you know, is our network set up right? All that
I'm with
stuff.
you, Al.
I mean, I'd like to, because, again, if we could do, and I know it's kind of insane to try to do a test run across a whole district, but, you know, but again, since
they are sending out system requirements. So what Smarter Balance is doing right now, and they'll send them out periodically to say they're developing the online assessment and it will be supported under these types of system requirements. And so that was forwarded to me. I sent it off to Josh so that he can look at the system requirements to see what we have. But you're right, we're not going to have...
Is there provisions made? Like, what if something goes wrong? Because before it was just like the test. You're like, I mean, the book starts on fire or something, but other than that, it's like, I mean, it's pretty bulletproof. And like this suddenly adds a whole new wrinkle. And, I mean, a good wrinkle, I think, but a new wrinkle that, you know.
It does. I mean, and that's the piece we don't even know. They're still developing it. Field test items are out. There are certain states that are starting to field test some of the items, but not all states. We're getting some released sample items from Smarter Balance to kind of get our hands around and wrap our heads around what they're implying by the types of assessment items. But other than that, it's kind of we're getting information as it comes.
I think the answer to that too, Carolyn, in relation to Al's question, is the reason we chose the STAR universal screening tool was it mimics the Smarter Balance assessment technologically. And so we will actually be able to pilot this year and next year student interaction with the technology, so we'll be that much better prepared. And I think the other piece that I would add into the equation is we've struggled with what's the purpose of our technology purchases, and this puts that front and center. You know, we have to have a robust system, and we have to have the availability of the students in order for them to be able to do this effectively. So I don't think we'll be struggling for meaning much longer in terms of our technology purchases because they have to support this effort.
Right. The State Department of Education, in working with Smarter Balance, they've been trying to do technology audits of all the schools in the state. So that is a requirement, and they're looking every so often, I forget what the timeline is, for updates on those technology audits because they want to determine whether or not there's some equity and we can meet the needs of the assessment. So that is a concern at the state level.
I had a question about the waiver that the state is going to apply for from No Child Left Behind, that assuming that that waiver is granted, my understanding is that one of the conditions is that teachers have to be evaluated on student learning, which would be, I would assume, performance on the test that Smarter Balance is developing. Is that correct, or is that to be?
I think that's to be determined. One of the things that it goes back to our universal screening tool. There's multiple meanings to why we need the universal screener, which also provides benchmarking over the course of the year, but it allows us also to look at individual student growth to ensure that all students are making growth over the course of the year. It is aligned to Common Core. So for us, in the event that we need to provide some type of information if we are waived, I do believe regardless if we're waived or not, all districts need some type of information to support, are you making growth for, are students, all students making growth in a given year with a given teacher? It might be various amounts of growth, but we need to ensure a certain amount of growth for students. And that also gives us a really good indication and evidence of learning is this key piece that I think we need. We have this wonderful anecdotal information that we do wonderfully in the district. We need to be more comprehensive in having that qualitative data with a quantitative measure to ensure that things are making sense and that what we see in the classroom is also being confirmed or raising questions by that quantitative set of information that we're now going to be gathering through STAR assessment. And I think, having so much up in the air, going into a new online assessment, wondering if we're going to get waivers, putting things in place in the district to ensure that we have confidence and that we're making gains, we are implementing, we're using a tool that's aligned to Common Core. I think either way, whichever way we end up going, that information will serve us well in helping us thoughtfully reflect on our instruction as educators, helping the community support us in the efforts we've done in implementing and the work we're doing. And also in the event that we do have a waiver, we can have evidence to support growth over the course of a year and evidence that students are meeting the standards. So those pieces have been a concern for Jim and I, that beyond the one large-scale assessment, that we have a consistent tool that we can look at student growth, eventually K-10 or K-12, and have a consistent measure and ensure our community and for our educators having the confidence as well to have a couple measures, multiple measures to look at to be able to ensure that we're making gains with all students. That's a critical piece, and I think even if AYP goes away, and we still want to know that all students are making gains, regardless if we're being held accountable to those subgroups. I think that's an important piece.
Thanks.
John, did you have a question?
I did have a question, and then Al basically took the words right out of my mouth with what goes wrong thing, so I guess we're on the same page tonight.
Well, thank you. Anybody else?
Megan?
Sorry.
Megan.
Waited till the end. I'm curious about the impact of implementing this core curriculum, or this core standards, and how it would affect our curriculum. And we do purchase certain packaged curriculum, namely the math at the elementary school level. So I'm curious about, especially as we go into budget planning, are we going to have to make any significant adjustments in curriculum that, we need to take into account?
I was just in discussion with that earlier today. One of the things that we put out as a charge this year for the district is that they're looking at their current materials and crosswalking it to the Common Core. They should find things that are confirming that as this is what I've taught, I can also continue to teach it. I see that it's the same level of rigor. They need to provide evidence of why they're continuing, what's new. And at the same time, I'm asking them to look at their current resources to determine if those same resources will get them there in accomplishing the Common Core. And they're just that. They are resources. They were the best resources at the time for the current set of standards that we're in, GLEs and NECAP, but we know those standards have changed. What I'm happy is that we're not doing the rush to buy resources before we even know the standards. And that worries me when I would say with the GLEs, there was this standards-based push. Textbook companies came out with all these great materials. Everyone thought the silver bullet was buying new textbooks. And then they found out, oops, it has to do something with instruction and content knowledge. And then we found out that those materials only went so far. Some were put in place for consistency of math content. If some teachers had deeper math content or even passion for certain content areas, you can't doubt that all of us have certain passions over other subjects than others, and teachers are much the same, even though they put an equal weight and emphasis on those content areas for our children. We do know that sometimes resources are put in place for that level of consistency, regardless of teacher, and then at some point, we still need to know that teachers know their content, have a deep enough content knowledge, and know where to put emphasis, even with a consistent resource. And we found that with certain resources, teachers teach exactly what's in there, and our students don't have deeper understanding of the content. It was just a bunch of nice activities with no deepening of the concept. As they go through this year, in the early spring, I let them all know that I would be looking for evidence to support whether a resource should continue or whether a resource should be replaced. And at that point, if in fact that the resource is no longer valuable, we would have to really examine purchasing and looking for a better resource. The universal screener, that STAR assessment, also there was the fear and that what if we go back to doing our own thing again, heaven forbid. The universal screener actually allows us to be more creative again, knowing that it helps us measure whether or not students are growing and making gains and we're implementing the content. If someone teaches it a little differently than someone else, but they've basically met or gone beyond, better yet, I don't see any problem with that. I think we've gotten into, with our old standards, because they were so topic-driven, this race, you know, ready, set, run. And we just drove through topics as quickly as we could to get to the end of the year. And then we closed our books and said, I've done as much as I can. I was consistent. I did what I could with the time allotted. And I would hope that we would be more thoughtful in achieving the standards as opposed to page turning. And if we end up having less continuity in how we deliver, but consistency in what our students attain as far as content knowledge and possibly go beyond, I'm all for it. And I don't see it as being, it may not mean that we purchased large numbers of textbooks that for the sake of continuity. And it may challenge teachers to have to really think creatively and not have the book to refer to. And that's a challenge that, that I'm going to need to support and find the professional development and guidance to help support them in making that development happen for them in their curriculum. But yeah, I don't necessarily see it. I do worry about the budget as far as looking into my crystal ball now and creating a budget, not having heard or having the teachers had time to really grapple with the standards enough. We're going to be 2 months pretty soon, eventually into our year, and I still don't think that's enough time for them to say whether a resource is worth keeping or letting go. So, you know, we had kind of talked about possibly putting in a span of possible funds that could be used for resources with a cap, you know, to help us at least go into the unknown, but still provide some resources and supports for our teachers as they implement brand new standards. So, slippery slope. Anne?
So, what I understand you said is that as we get into this budget season, that we shouldn't expect to see a lot of change just yet, because you are doing your investigation and you are assessing what tools you have and which ones you believe will support your mission. But that as we approach our next budget season, we may be looking at a very different animal.
Right, right. That's one of the things that I'm hoping to try and do is put some funds in to support something they see as a direct need or an immediate need for the next school year, but also try and protect some professional development. And I don't even like to call it professional development. I'd rather call it professional learning opportunities, because I don't see it as our traditional culture of going to conferences. I see it as helping support this directed focus group study, bringing community members who we know have experience in education to help support our work, having curriculum development, but I don't necessarily see it as as traditionally what may have been a haphazard kind of, this is culturally what we do, but it would definitely impact instruction. We would need to see evidence of that, that their learning is somehow helping them improve in what they're doing as an educator. So, another question?
Thank you,
Thank
Carolyn.
you very much.
On another, can I add a quick note? Is this not appropriate? This is not related to my, can I wait, do I do this in public comment? About food service?
Yeah, if you would. That's
Okay.
the right place. I want to thank Carolyn for that presentation, and it really speaks to the issue of how much this body really wants to learn about what's transpiring at the state and national level. And I would just add, in terms of creativity, you know, we talk about creativity in this district and how proud we are of the creativity our teachers use in applying the curriculum. And I think Carolyn's presentation really speaks to Einstein's quote, "The true measure of intelligence is imagination." And we can go down this road and be very pedantic and soldier-like, or we can encourage our staff to do what they do well and use the standards to support our work. And that's the goal that both Carolyn and I have, and the administrative team and the teachers we've talked to. We do not see us being October 31st, and you should be on page 47 doing odd-numbered problems. We want this district to be known for what it has always been known for, dedicated professionals looking for new ways to reach youngsters. And so that's, I hope, what you got out of Carolyn's presentation, because that's what we believe. Thank you, Carolyn.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Continuing my report.
Yes, please.
I would want to just keep the board informed. I did meet with the consultant on future search today and hope to have a more rich report for you in the future, but I was very encouraged by today's report. I know I've talked to you in the past about how we would bring 100 people from across the district together, and we actually got into a conversation about how we could expand that into a much richer dialogue with the 3 towns and the communities, and I look forward to giving you that report very soon. The New Hampshire School Administrative Association, as you know, has been retained to do a capacity study. They'll be on site September 18th and 19th. They're meeting with our principals and our maintenance supervisor, getting a sense of program as well as facility, because they're hand in hand. And that report should be due by the end of October, mid-November, in that time frame. And I also wanted to share, and I really want to emphasize, these are unofficial enrollment numbers. The official numbers for our schools will be taken October 1st. We are a little bit ahead of projections. I mean, marginally, statistically insignificant. But the good news is we opened extremely well across the district. Every school was ready for students. Every teacher was ready for students. The facilities were stunning. If you had a chance in those first couple of days to come into the buildings, our custodial staff really knocked it out of the park. I want to say that I have never opened a school where I didn't get 50 calls on transportation. I'll be honest with you, I did not get a single call. Not that there weren't hiccups, because transportation always has hiccups in the first week, but the adjustments were relatively minor. We had a couple of class size issues at the middle school. Jay Richard jumped right on it and corrected those very quickly. And so overall, our enrollment looks good, and the official report is October 1st. I gave you the class sizes at Moheramet and Massway, so you can see how those are panning out. And I just want to compliment the staff, administrators, teachers, support staff for a really smooth opening.
Can I ask you a quick question, Jim?
Sure can, Krista.
When will we get the official enrollment figures prior to our our full-day board budget? What do we call that thing?
We don't call it a workshop.
No, we don't.
What's the
Our
date?
full-day budget meeting?
October
There we go.
2nd.
Full-day budget meeting.
Well, I'll have, they will, there's a 2-week period where the state confirms numbers and so forth, but I'll have a much more firmer number on October 2nd than I have tonight.
Okay, and when we have those numbers, can we also know what the capacity of each of the buildings are, and how many of the students starting in October, or starting for this school year, were new students to the district?
I can give you the second one, but I
Okay.
can't give you the first one, because that's exactly what the New Hampshire
Right.
Association is
Right.
doing, so that'll be towards the end of the month.
Okay.
But in terms of how many new students we have in the district, that would be relatively easy for me to
Okay.
pull together for you.
That would be great, thank you.
Another request. When we get the enrollment figures for the high school, can you break out the numbers by tuition students
We
as
can
well?
do that.
So we know what the total is, but then of that total, how many are tuition students?
Yep.
That would be by grade.
Yep.
Thank you.
We're monitoring that pretty carefully. I'm sure Todd has it right at his tongue.
Like every meeting I ask that question.
Any other questions? Then we move on to the business.
I'll ask Susan Caswell to come to the podium and give us a budget update for 2013.
I provided you in your packet with a different view of the budget from what I used to. Basically, I've summarized the major categories of the budget and then given you what's left and the percentage spent. I made a few notes on the bottom there. Just one thing to note is we encumber all of our salaries and benefits once we get everyone in place, and that had just happened today. So your next month, you will see a lot of numbers in that encumbrance figure, and that will give you a true picture of what you have left for just your operating cost. Using a benchmark, because administrators and custodians were paid year-round, I made a little note there that we're right on target, 19.5% of the budget spent after 2 months. And you can see that most of our expenditures are in the operating budget because we're getting ready for school, so. Any questions, or is this the format that works for you? Because I have a number of different formats I can put this in, but I thought this would be the most informative for you to see what's happening with budget.
I like it.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sue.
Thanks.
Student Senate report.
We have one more.
Do we?
Transportation.
Official,
Transportation?
I don't have that on mine.
it doesn't say so.
We have backup for.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because we were planning on it, but we didn't put it
Okay.
on the agenda.
All right. Got it.
So am I presenting right now?
You are.
Okay, great. Next, the Senate has been working on planning next week, which is our high school Spirit Week. Spirit Week is a competition between all the high school classes to prove which class has the most spirit. So on Monday, we have Blue and White Day, which is an Oyster River High School entire just school unity day where kids dress up in blue and white. Tuesday is Superhero Day. Dress up as your favorite superhero. Wednesday is Sports Memorabilia Day, so Al would be appropriately dressed for that. Thursday, the theme is Twin Day, so you dress up as a twin with another kid. It's also Picture Day. There's Rent a Junior going on during a day where you can give some money to the junior class and a junior will carry your bags for you. And Mr. Bobcat, which is a competition between senior boys, will be taking place in the evening. On Friday, the theme is Class Color Day, where you come to school dressed in your class color. Freshmen are green, sophomores are red, juniors are black, seniors are blue, and the staff are white. We have Field Day, which is a day with a modified class schedule. So there's competitions in the afternoon between teams from different classes to, again, prove who has the most spirit. There's a boys' soccer game at home against Portsmouth in the afternoon, and then Friday night is the homecoming dance. And after that, we will be working on more fundraising.
For the tent.
Yeah, for the tent.
Well, thank you. I had the question listening to NPR. They were talking about sleeping, and I guess the school in Michigan changed their opening time for high school by an hour, and SATs went up, and schools in Canada are doing the same, and I think that the Student Senate should look into this.
Look into changing the start time?
Sleeping.
We did that last.
Yeah, we did that last year, 2 years ago.
2 years.
We polled the students, and if I remember correctly, it wasn't a real popular idea, and it's just such a scheduling nightmare.
For whom?
For sports.
And for students who work after school.
Mm-hmm.
Was there a written report, John? Did you guys put up a written report?
The superintendent did a written report. I think it was 2 years ago, this past spring. Pretty sure that's when it was.
I think that's right.
Thank you.
So scheduling is more important
Sleep.
than achievement. Achievement went up.
Question for John. So who decides who has the most spirit?
Well,
Does that work? It's
I guess
very
I should have talked-
subjective.
Obviously, every year it's the freshmen. The blue and white day, or each day, the dress up, I'm actually not sure totally how the scoring works, but each event gives points to a class. So if you have the most people dressed up as blue and white, your class gets X number of points. If you have the second most, your class gets X number of points, and so on. And for winning events on field day, your class gets points. And we also have a pep rally on Friday where your class can win points, and the class with the most points wins.
What?
Wins what?
They win Spirit Week.
Okay.
I get a question now, if I could not. Just Catherine, were you raising your hand?
No, I was just saying 2 years.
Oh, 2 years.
He's trying to help us. Sign language.
There we
Great.
go.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, John.
Now we have other, and we are on transportation update.
Let me invite Lisa up first, if you don't mind. Lisa Hupp is our transportation director, and she was supposed to be listed as a report tonight, and she is ready to give it, so I will invite her up to do that.
Good evening. Want to start off with, over the summer, we had 2 of our drivers retire. And in efforts to try to consolidate, I managed to take 2.5 bus routes out of our daily bus routes. That also includes our special needs buses that are on the road. So we currently are operating with 25 buses on the road daily. That does include our special ed, special needs transportation. And then we have 21 regular buses on the road. And the consolidations, we're using the guidelines of the RSAs, 1896 and 1898, state of New Hampshire. And there's a school bus stop evaluation criteria that is developed by the New Hampshire Department of Education and the Department of Safety that is used when consolidating bus stops or figuring walkouts to bus stops. And also the district policy EEA comes into the picture. So the bus routes, when the consolidations, the bus routes are just a little bit longer, and we've had to make some more group bus stops. It seems to be working out very well. We're working out some wrinkles as we go type of thing. We started off with 21 high school, middle school bus routes, 20 elementary bus routes. I believe there are 9 at Mastway and 11 at Moheramet. Right now, we currently have 11 kindergarten buses running. The Mastway kindergarten buses seem to be running very well. Moheramet, I have some wrinkles I need to iron out there, but we are working on it. They're a bit on the long side, but we are working on it. We have vocational buses running, approximately 7 vocational shuttle buses running between Rochester, Somersworth, Dover, and Oyster River High School. And it seems to be going well. And I haven't had too many phone calls as well.
I want to share with the board that Lisa took me through the entire district the week before school opened and literally drove me to every place where she is anticipated, that might cause concern for her. And that was we probably spent 3 hours that day driving through the district, and she'd stop and show me why there's no common collection point. And as all of you know who have been in the district for a very long time, the roads in the district are very curvy, and part of the criteria in the regs is that there has to be sidewalks for students to be collected at collection points, or there has to be a safe zone. And there are so many places. This was really an educational ride for me. There are so many places where Lisa's hands are tied. You can't make a common collection point because literally they would be a very dangerous situation created for students. So through that 3 hours, I ended it by saying this to her. I really got to know her well, and I knew from that trip that Lisa's heart is always thinking about the safety of students. I mean, every time that she talked, she was talking about why this is safe, why this is unsafe, and it was a very student-centered drive, and I want the board to know that I have complete faith and trust in her decisions as it comes to these runs. She was very amazing and very fortunate to have a director of her caliber.
Thank you. Any questions?
Al?
I saw so much question as a comment. And first of all, I'm like really happy you didn't get a lot of complaints. And it was good on the district website. We had in big bold in the center part was like the bus routes, and people could click on it.
Yes.
But what we need to do for like next year is at each of the elementary schools, that should have been on the elementary website with the person could click and they would have the elementary bus routes, and then the middle school and the high school the same. Because if the person is going to their school website first and not the district one, they kind of missed it. So
That's a very good point.
That's
and
on us.
Right now, we're also working on making our transportation portion of the website user-friendly, and that's a great point to put links on the schools as well. So, yeah.
I just wanted to note something that I thought was really a nice touch, was that on the buses you have the number as well as the name of the bus
Yes.
driver. That's huge, and I
Yes.
think that's wonderful.
It makes a
It
difference.
makes a huge difference, and I
Yeah.
noticed that. I also, my children are one of those consolidated routes, and where there's the buses used to stop very close. Now they're all consolidated
Yeah.
in a common area, and I think there's a wonderful kind of ancillary effect is the whole sense of community, and I see it just being a good experience for kids, getting to know each other of different ages, and even the parents, forging, friendly community relationships. So I think it's very good, and I know there's a lot of economics behind that, but I think there were some positive effects as well.
Yes.
So just wanted to note it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Any questions?
Anybody else? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we're into other.
Mhm.
We're on other.
I'm really excited to speak on behalf of Doris Demers. She's the new food service director. One of the things that came about in an email today, I asked her if we were involved in Farm to School, kind of a personal passion of mine, but aside from that, she said yes, fresh corn from Zach's Farm in York will be served at the elementary schools tomorrow. And she's about to place an order for grass-fed beef, and she got a great price from Miles Smith Farm in Loudon, New Hampshire. So for those of us who have really, in the community that have been looking for what Doris cares about in being our food service director and what are nutritious meals for our children, I think this is a wonderful start and speaks volumes to what she was able to accomplish in such a short period of time. So it's a nice connection.
Can I ask a
Krista?
question about that? If we have any local farmers who want to bid for the school district business to provide these things, how do they go about that?
Typically, I believe, and I had to do this myself, you go through Stacy Perslow in the Office of Sustainability, and she's the Farm to School coordinator, and she'll add you to, add the farm to a list of participating farms or vendors, and then that's typically what the schools, the participating schools, will then choose from that list as kind of an approval piece, an approved vendor.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Okay. District announcements and commendations.
I do rock, paper, scissors.
They informs me that the high school always goes first. So. It's a new rule. I didn't know about that. I do want to echo what Jim said about our opening of school going very smoothly. The buildings looked fantastic, so I do want to commend our custodians and for the hard work they did it all summer. Fantastic. A couple of events coming up to be aware of, or actually one event to come up. Open house at the high school is September 20th. That's Thursday. From 6 to 6:30, our jazz band will be playing in the cafeteria, and then the open house is 6:30 to 8:30. So parents are invited to come and follow their child's schedule, and kind of get a chance to meet their teachers. I want to also thank the Durham Police Department and our SRO, Holly Molaski. If you had a chance to be over at the high school the day before school started, we had new student orientation, and they provided pizza for everybody, and so the whole Durham Police Department was over there, you know, handing out pizza and so forth. It was great. Much more pizza than any of us could eat, so it was wonderful. On a local political note, but also one that impacts the high school, do be aware that next Tuesday, September 11th, is the New Hampshire primaries for state offices such as governor and state legislature and that sort of thing. It's not quite as the level of an impact that will be on November 6th when the election takes place, but do be aware that the multipurpose room at the high school is the site for Durham voting. And so we will have parking spaces reserved in the front of the building for people coming in to vote and entering and exiting the multipurpose room. You can come in through that front door right there at the front of the building. You don't need to go into the front corridor and go through the office for that. So they'll have immediate access to the voting area. But again, that's September 11th, and just be aware of that. And I'll also be reminding students of that because obviously parking will be at a premium to some extent. I did want to also mention, because you approved the nominations of a bunch of robotics parent volunteers. That's a program that we really depend on our parent volunteers for, our community volunteers. There are 6 of them. They're the most dedicated. I mean, even though the season is like October through March, it's a year-round thing. They're doing things all summer. They're pulling things together. They're very actively involved. So these are volunteers that are on a regular basis really helping out, and it makes a huge difference to our kids in our program. And then lastly, I just want to mention we signed up 2 more students on Tuesday, so it was actually 678 is the total enrollment.
Thank you.
Jay Richard, the principal at the middle school. Like Todd said, we had a great start. One of the things we talked as a school community at our first staff meeting is we want to make sure our kids leave with smiling faces on the first day of school, and I have no doubt we accomplished that. Dr. Morris also mentioned in terms of, the ground's looking great, but I know it's important for the board to hear you approved some new bathrooms last year. We did a bathroom renovation, and what a great difference that has made actually for the students and the staff. I can tell you they're most appreciative, and those bathrooms hadn't been renovated since I think it was 1955. So those types of efforts, it makes a huge impact on the school culture in terms of, and I do want you to know they're very appreciative of that. Our school open house will be September 18th from 6:30 to 8 o'clock. As Todd mentioned, we all worked as principals to make sure our dates were separate, so to make it a little bit easier on families. And we also started to improve communication throughout the community. We've finally started our social media presence this year, where we actually have a school Facebook page and also a Twitter account. So I've been impressed with the amount of students and families that are already checking that out, and we plan to update that regularly. So, couple grade 8 concerns. We've made some changes this year. Dr. Morris mentioned about the algebra switch. What happened with that is we had a large amount of students get added pretty much right close to the start of the school year. So working with the staff, we made some switches. So as a result, I've been getting somewhat an earful from our 8th grade students, because what we do is when you're a middle school student, everything is about being with a friend. So when the principal asks to change sections, we'd have some shifts in that. So I've kind of gotten an earful from my 8th grade students. So I'm sorry for that, but again, we have to make decisions what we feel is in their best interest, particularly with academic achievement. And also I've been getting an earful from students at lunchtime as well as about our change in our soccer program. Historically, we've had a 7th grade program and an 8th grade program, but it wasn't due to a budget cut that we went to one program for both boys and girls. The issue was just games. We didn't have enough teams that we could play in the Seacoast area. Last year with our 7th grade teams, we were only able to schedule a few games, so it got to be the point where it just really wasn't sustainable in terms of scheduling so few games that have 2 teams. So that's something else. And again, it's been a great start to the school year. I'm very proud of the students, and it's been great to meet with our 8th grade new student leaders. Lastly, all the lockers went in right before school, so John might be a little bit jealous, but every single student now at the school has a locker. So that's something our middle school kids are psyched about. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, everyone. I'm Carrie Vache. I'm the principal at Mastway. And since I'm kind of the newest person here on the leadership team, I just wanted to say good evening to all of you and let you know, just to echo the same statements, is that we have had the most fantastic opening of school over at Mastway. Students were so excited to come through those front doors. It was just amazing. The buses rolled up. It was a seamless transition, and it's just been wonderful to be there and to join the community. There were so many people that worked tirelessly over the summer months. I still have family members say, "You work in the summer?" Like, really? But I really want to thank Chris Curry and Nancy Rhines in the office, who have not only brought me up to speed, but really manage everything to make sure everyone has the forms they need, the documentation they need, everything is in, along with Catherine Moore, our nurse, who is great to come in before school started to really make sure we had plans in place for children, especially medically fragile children. I have to echo what everyone has said. Coming into this district, I am blown away by the cleanliness of all the schools, especially our Mastway. And I really want to thank our folks that work there, our head custodian, Dave Morin, Karen Valvo, and Mike Landry, who have worked tirelessly. We housed the summer program at Mastway this summer, and on top of that, we had a number of summer camps going on as well. So it was a busy place. People were in and out. I was really happy because I was able to meet folks as they, before the real push came. But it made it a challenge, and they did not complain one bit. They said, we're going to get it done. They have the can-do attitude. It was just really amazing. At Mastway, we have a few events coming up. Our PTO picnic will be this Friday night from 5:30 to 7, so we're hoping everyone can join. And we are also hosting our parent curriculum night, which is an evening event for parents only, next Thursday, September 13th, from 5:30 to 7:30. I'll be sending out a formal notification about that tomorrow. But like I said, it's an evening event for parents to really come in, hear about their curriculum, hear from classroom teachers about routines, expectations, and the plan for the year. So my short time here, I've been extremely pleased. I appreciate everyone on the leadership team who has helped me acclimate, and I look forward to a great year. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Ditto about the opening. I'd like to go to that event at the high school where you dress up as your hero. Well, I no longer need to dress up because I look exactly like my hero. And he's been dead for 30 years. That's not what I'm supposed to be talking about. And if truth be known, I hate doing this, but I need to, and our new superintendent told me I need to, so I'm going to do it anyway. On the 21st of August, we had a cookout for all of the new families at Moharimet and invited existing families in the same classrooms as the new children to greet them and to make them feel comfortable. I thought you should know about that. There will be 18 open houses at Moharimet. We don't do a large open house. Teachers design their own open house and invite parents in, and from our experience, it creates it minimizes the hustle and bustle of trying to decide whether you're going to go to your first grade child's open house or your third grade child's open house. So a lot of advantages to that. Not the only way to do it, but that's the way we do it, have been doing it for a while. Every child in the next to last day of school in June planted a seed in the pumpkin patch. Saturday, we harvested 300 pumpkins, and there are 300 more still out there, still growing. That will be followed up on the 21st, I think it's the 21st, don't hold me to that, of October with our pumpkin stroll. Now, don't get nervous over this. There will be a bonfire and 385 pumpkins will be in a circle, and you're all invited. They'll all be lit up. Don't worry, I'm not responsible for watching that. The fire department does that. So that's a little bit about what's going on at Moharmet, and I'll try to do this job every 2 weeks, but I don't like doing it.
What happens to the pumpkins?
All right.
What happens to the pumpkins after this?
One of two things. They bring them home, or we collect them and put them in, not in the trash, but we recycle them.
Well, it's also a massive art activity. You make jack-o'-lanterns from them.
Yes.
Because
yes.
pigs
Oh, yes,
love
the I left that point out. They make jack-o'-lanterns.
Well, pigs don't care. They would love them. So I'll be happy to pick them up.
You're all invited. You're all invited. It's really fun.
He's missing you there, Mary.
She's going to take some home.
Tell him about your.
Well, you can have them. You can come. You can come back. You can come by and pick them up.
Yes.
They're in about a 1 mile circle. This is wonderful because now I can
Dennis, you
hear
did such a good. See, you did such a good job. You hate doing it. You did such a good job. Everybody's going to want you to come back.
I'll learn this.
But everybody's going to want you to come back.
It's painful for me to do this. Not many people know that. Now a lot more do.
Thank you. Okay. Where are we?
We are
District.
board announcement.
Board announcements. Krista?
I promise. I'm not going to list a bajillion things going on like I did in June, but I am going to do 2 commendations out of the mouths of babes, because it's an hour and a half past my kids' bedtime, and we don't have cable, so they don't know. So we walked into Massway Elementary for my children's open house, and my son, and I won't even tell you which one it was, because then that eliminates who to embarrass, said that they turned the floors into mirrors. So that tells you how clean Massway was. He was all excited. Mom, look, they turned the floors into mirrors. Not exactly, but okay. And then my second commendation is something that actually occurred a couple years ago, but I love telling this story because it's really fun. We went to the grocery store. My children are back-to-back kindergartners, and we went to the grocery store this summer in between their kindergarten years. And we ran into Tricia Hall, who is a kindergarten teacher in our district, now at Moharmet, was at Massway. And my kids were screaming from the inside of the car, Mom, it's Mrs. Hall! Mrs. Hall is at the grocery store! So I said, you can go out and say hello to Mrs. Hall. We can talk to her at the grocery store? Yes, you can talk to her at the grocery store. So we went and talked to her. When we got back in the car, my son said, Mom, I can't believe we saw Mrs. Hall at the grocery store. It's like seeing Mrs. Parsons or Hannah Montana. I'm like, yeah. So welcome back to all of our Mr. and Mrs. Hannah Montanas, and thank you very much for inspiring our children to be rock stars.
Thank you. Al?
I had one to the accommodation, just to the cross-country coaches at the high school. They had a year, last year they didn't go to a camp, but this year they were able to go to Barrington for a full weekend. And I can't remember how many kids, I think it was like something like 40 kids they took there. Yeah, so for a whole weekend, it was, as a former coach, that's a lot of responsibility to put on your hands, and I heard nothing but great things from the kids that went to it. It was a lot of fun. And it really helped to build the team up, and we really appreciate the work they did.
Yep. I've heard about it too.
Yeah, I bet.
Thank you. Anybody else?
This is under commendations, and I don't know whether I should do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. The leadership that the 4 of us principals have received in the last 2 months has been incredible. There is dialogue, there is action, there is forming a direction, there is humor, there is delight, there is lots of fun and lots of work.
Great. Thank you.
You were talking about the transportation director, Dan?
You and Mrs. Caswell. And we talk behind your back. And it's mostly that sort of language.
Thank you, Dennis.
Discussion items, possible long-term proposal for grade 6-12 students from Newmarket.
Thank you,
Mr.
Madam Chair. In
Superintendent.
your packet, I enclosed a letter from the superintendent from Newmarket. As you know, interim superintendent Levesque has entered into conversations with area school systems about the possibility of tuitioning in students. Sort of an adventurous conversation as we look at declining enrollment over the next decade. And I would tie this into an earlier action by the board in relation, or a report that I made to the board relating to the New Hampshire School Administrative Association doing capacity study. Had many conversations with Todd and some with Jay around the capacity of the high school and middle school, and the possibility of bringing in significant tuition students. In the course of this, over the course of the summer, community members have come in, and that's been a conversation of topic. And we didn't know really how serious those conversations were developing. We didn't know whether it was just kind of like, let's have this conversation and see if there's any substance to it, or whether we were going to move to the next level. On the same day, Friday, a week ago, both the Barrington superintendent and the Newmarket superintendent contacted me. I asked them if they would please put their interest in writing so I could share it with you and the community. And as you can see tonight, the Newmarket superintendent has done that with the authority of, in support of his school board. So what I'm asking tonight is that you allow me to form, or Maria form, an ad hoc committee to have discussions with Newmarket, and I would like to invite Todd and Jay into that ad hoc committee because of the potential impact on their buildings. And I would characterize it as a serious conversation, but not definitive. There's lots of questions and lots of data to collect. And there's lots of conversations to have with our member communities of Madbury, Lee, and Durham. But before we can have intelligent conversations with our member communities, we need to have intelligent conversations with potential school systems like Newmarket, so we can have data and information and anticipate questions and get a sense of what they're willing to do and what we're willing to do. Before we can have those kind of conversations with our member communities. I would share with you that as I've talked about this issue informally with various leaders of the three communities, there is a very high interest in bringing in tuition students, because they know that not only does it help us financially, and Todd and I have had extensive conversations about this, this would be the #1 reason why we would want to do it. It maintains the academic programming that the district is known for. So I'm asking support of the board to move forward in these conversations in a much more public format than has happened in the past. In the past was appropriate. I'm not saying that. But I think it's time to kind of come out of the closet on this conversation, have them do reports to this body, begin to have conversations with our member communities, because this would be a huge issue of change for the system if it materialized, and we want to make sure that as we go forward on this issue, we do it correctly. And I really want to speak to something that Al said to me when we were talking about communications in the Communications Committee. It's better to take the time to do it right than do it quickly. And I think this, I'm really going to carry that mantra, Al, because I really rung true, because we have so many issues in front of us that we could attack them all in sort of a machine gun fashion. and miss opportunity because we weren't ready to have the conversation in a meaningful way with our communities. So I'm asking Madam Chair to allow an ad hoc committee of 1 or 2 members of this body, our middle school principal and our high school principal, and I would bring that group to a conversation with the superintendent in Newmarket and whomever he brings to the table. And that would be the first step, and as we develop a report and recommendation, then that could be a much more engaging group.
Mm-hmm. Do we have any volunteers for this?
I want to be on that committee, but can I ask a quick question? Do we know when, I actually have 2 questions. Do we know when the Newmarket School District needs to place their students yet?
Yeah. Thank you, Krista. The Newmarket as a school system, and of course my knowledge will be very surface, but it's based on my conversation with the superintendent, within 2 years has to have a decision made related to their high school. Their high school does not meet the New Hampshire Department of Education criteria as a facility that they want to continue to be used as a high school. Newmarket is in discussions about whether they want to build their own high school. And as we all know, that's a tens of millions of dollar prospect, or whether they want to enter into a partnership like the one we're talking about where they would tuition in their students. So their timeline is within the next 2 school years, but I think in practical terms, for us to be able to communicate effectively and for them to communicate effectively, we would really have to have a pretty in-depth, meaningful discussion within this school year, so that we would be ready to make recommendations to you and to the communities at large.
And is Barrington going forth with their building of their high school as anticipated in 2014, 2015?
I do not know that. I know the conversation with Barrington, my conversation with the Barrington superintendent, as not as global as Newmarket's. What she shared with me was that Barrington enjoys the concept of choice for their high school students, and the schools that they currently are choosing are Dover principally, and then Co-Brown and us as secondary choices. And as Todd has reported in the past, more and more Barrington families are choosing Oyster River, and that's their contract. Their contract with Dover ends in not this school year, but the next school year. And so they're trying to establish the relationship with us, Co-Brown and Dover, that would carry them past 2015. And so it wouldn't be the comprehensive conversation we would have with Newmarket, but it could be increasing dramatically the number of youngsters from Barrington. However, I have to say that if the Newmarket conversation materialized into a decision that Newmarket youngsters were coming here, it pretty much would exclude other school systems from tuitioning in because we would have no space left. The Newmarket students would likely fill the house.
Ann?
You shared with us the high school plans, but the letter alludes to the middle school as well. Could you share that with us, please?
Yep. When I talked to the superintendent, he wanted to open the conversation to include middle school students. And again, you know, we tend to connect dots that aren't necessarily connected, but I would put out there that we know that within 3 years, we'll see a precipitous drop in enrollment at our elementary schools, and we're seeing even today an inequitable distribution of students between the 2 schools. And so there could be implications as we move forward in terms of how we enroll students at the 2 elementary schools that could create opportunity for us at the middle school. But again, that's a conversation that's separate and yet to be had.
Al?
2 things. Actually, I'm interested also in being on that committee. But the second thing is, the Newmarket thing is, in my opinion, just one piece or one option as we go forward. And my concern is that instead of being reactionary, which is like we've gotten these grim forecasts of a declining enrollment of 400 kids, and lo and behold, Newmarket is sitting there, and by my math, it's like almost 500 kids that would come into the district if we did this. We're kind of skipping the step, that strategic plan or where we're going or what we value. We never really got that element done. And so we've gotten to part C, but we didn't do part A first. And that's what concerns me. If we could do it along the same stream, like, what is it that we really value in Oyster River? What's important to us? What are the fundamental things that we want to preserve, and how can we do that? And is Newmarket the right answer? This also, as we come to the three communities, that we can clearly lay out what the options are. So if we do Newmarket, this is what the pluses and the minuses are. You know, there's no free lunch. There'll be some pluses. There'll be minuses. If we don't do Newmarket, what are the other options? If we're going to, if we, decline in size, what will we look like? If there's things like VLAX and all that, do we need as much space? So, I think we should be able to lay out a clear plate of options to everybody and then come to the community. I'm just going by what Epping did, which is Epping eventually went to a non-binding referendum where they actually went out to the communities and said, you know what, this is what our plan is. What do you think? And I think that what concerns me to start with is that I almost feel like and I hope no one sends me any hate mail for this, but it's like, but I almost feel like I'm in a timeshare presentation. And it's like, it's like, okay, you know what? It's like if I'm looking at the time frame of this and it's like, it's 2 years, but to do 2 years, we would be doing the budget next year to accommodate all these changes that would be brought in. So if we were going to do something like a referendum that goes out to the communities, we're talking February, we're going to have to move along at a brisk pace. So going back to what you said, is like thinking through all of our options clearly and not being placed under a undue time constraint is going to be a tricky balance. But I think it's a good opportunity for our district to get together and talk, and I feel better because you've had experience both with the declining and changing. So, I think it's an interesting opportunity
and
for
just
us.
in terms of, we are really doing three things at the same time, Alan. I would throw in that the work we're doing on Future Search will address the issues of what our priorities are as a system. We won't have the strategic plan done, but we'll know what our priorities are. So I think it'll all come together as we go towards the end of the school year. We'll have a better sense of who we are and what we want.
Al, thank you for that. That was a great synopsis. I refer to it as, do we embrace a larger community to maintain programs, or do we right size based on who we are? It's one or the other. What we face if this is perceived as maintaining programs that cannot be maintained with a smaller population, we have a timetable that's inflexible. Newmarket has said what it is. And so whether we may feel like we're charging ahead, if the option that we choose is to try and grow our population so that we maintain programs, increase programs, it's almost, the decision, the time frame is out of our control.
Having said that, Ann, I do want to reiterate, I do think we can do all of this in tandem through this school year. These three pieces, capacity study, discussion with Newmarket, and the Future Search, all are intertwined in our ability to be able to make sense to our communities when we have the conversation.
Megan.
I have a question about Barrington. What if you get a similar letter from Barrington?
Well, then you're
I mean,
you are in really good shape at that
well,
point because you can have meaningful conversations with both communities and you have choice. Now, when I was in a conversation with Mark Joyce, who's the director of the New Hampshire School Administrative Association, he characterized the situation throughout New Hampshire as a buyer's market, meaning that what's happening in our district in terms of enrollment is happening throughout the state of New Hampshire. Quite honestly, it's happening in Maine as well, where schools that were designed for much bigger populations no longer have those populations, and schools that have been tuitioning out their students, like Barrington, have greater choice in terms of who they can do business with. And I think that is true in terms of, Barrington is the example. They entered into their relationship with Dover, and Co-Brown and Oyster River really weren't factors 10 years ago. and now Co-Brown and Oyster River are choices that Barrington parents are making. On the other hand, Oyster River brings something to the table that not every school system can bring to the table, which is an incredible reputation for excellence. And so if you're looking to buy space, it's not everybody out there is created equal. I mean, parents are making decisions right now that their preference, with their preference of where they're tuitioning their kids, and by the way, those parents are putting personal money on the table to both Co-Brown and Oyster River to have those youngsters come here. So I don't necessarily think Mark's characterization of a buyer's market is necessarily true if one of the places you want to send your students is recognized as, you know, an excellent educational organization. So I do think as a seller of services, in this particular case, we're in pretty good shape. And I also don't want to dismiss what Ann said. You know, Ann said, you know, one of our options is to downsize, right-size, really, you know, become a school system of 1,600 kids in 10 years. But again, as somebody characterized, every choice has pluses and minuses. And, you know, for Todd and I, when we've talked about becoming a school system of 1,600, that really concerns us, because what you've crafted that works here at the high school would be jeopardized if you didn't have enough children to support that model. It means you have to, you know, change the model. And that also would cause concern with the member communities, because they've also become accustomed to the expectation that children are going to do well and go on to good colleges. So there is a do-nothing option, become a school system of 1,600, but also it's not an option without consequence.
Yes, a follow-up about Barrington. So you had some preliminary conversations with the superintendent. Was it primarily for the high school, or?
Yes, Barrington was interested in tuitioning youngsters from their high school.
Okay.
Population, they don't have.
Thank you.
Krista.
I have to say it because every time we talk about this topic, it creates conversation at the bus stop, at dinner, at restaurants, at grocery store, just about everywhere. And I just want to state that while we have fantastic students, Newmarket also has fantastic students, and Barrington also has fantastic students. And I would hope that during our discussions, it is never an option to hear that one reason why we wouldn't entertain bringing either Newmarket or Barrington into our district was that it would alternately affect our district because of the quality of student or who they are as people. Because they're all students, they're all kids, and they all deserve an education. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Well stated.
Any further questions? Then, if nobody objects, I would ask Krista and Al to work with the superintendent.
Is there a motion on that?
It's an ad hoc committee created by the chair.
I thought it was created by you.
Well, it can be.
That way we don't get into subcommittees.
Very good. By the superintendent requesting board members on the committee.
Do we need a formal motion?
I don't think so. If there's no objection to them volunteering.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. School board committee updates. As you know, the policy committee met and will continue to meet and continue to work. And I'm sure we'll bring out good results. And Al, you have?
I have a couple, actually. I will start with the communications subcommittee. We met yesterday, and it was Dr. Morris, myself, Maria, and we had Kathleen Young, who does the video for here, as well as Josh Olstead, who's our IT guy. And it was a great conversation. We started out, like, Josh is working on some kind of Google application. I think it's called Google Schedule. And that allows us, because I started out with the idea, let's do this, weekly board update that was going to kill me. And so smarter minds prevailed, which is like, this Google thing you can, again, do an entire month, so you guys can give all of your, hopefully everything that's going on in the schools can go on there. And there's a link, so you can click on it, and then we can have it explode out more, and you can get more detail. And as we go on, and in the year we'll have to work on this, it's like you can put then hopefully a link to pictures and videos as well on that. We didn't discuss this, but it's amazing that we've made all our kids, are supposedly in the high school, they're all supposed to be doing like this digital portfolio. And if we do this right, we're going to make one for our district. And so in terms of like the selling point, if we do have room for Barrington or something like that, before we discussed where it would be, there it is. It'd be right there. So it's a cool idea. He's working on it. Hopefully, we're going to meet again in 2 weeks. We'll have something more concrete, and we can get it going up. So that's a good thing. The second thing is he's begun to look at our models of effective school websites that are super user-friendly. He mentioned Lebanon. Hopefully at the next meeting he can bring us a couple of examples and we can look at them and see what, and we'll have to get input, of course, from you guys, school people, what you think is the best way to like make this effective or easy. And then that brought us to Kathleen Young, who we were really lucky to have her. I don't know if anyone ever saw, I told her, there was a video once that took place in the high school, and everybody did these really cool handshakes. It was like the greatest video I think I've ever seen of like school-related stuff. And she's also had a couple of students win some awards for their short film stuff. So she's a great resource, and there's a class that's now going on, which is a video production class, and they're going to work on, we're getting our own cable station, so they're going to be able to put on some shows, and she'll be able to bring in, guest speakers and that, and come and have them interviewed. And there was the discussion that a board member, potentially me, would come onto the TV show, and there would be an opportunity for me to go over some of the things that are going on in the district. Another great idea that she had was that one of the students could actually interview one of the board members on the process of how the budget actually occurs, because the students weren't really sure, and like what's a deliberative session and all that kind of stuff. The other thing we talked about with that is that, believe it or not, you've mentioned that there are some people in the district that don't have cable. They get football of every persuasion, but they don't get the local setup. So we would like to be able to put it on some kind of like we do with the school board meetings, that you can do it on demand on the internet. And so there's some discussions at YouTube, and I can't even remember what the name of the other one was, so that everybody has an opportunity whenever they need, or what's the best time for them that they can look at these broadcasts. The next thing we discussed was we will eventually get to some kind of a Friday updates thing, but until we can do a good job of it, there's no sense of just firing something out. And the process that we're working on right now is just building out our database. We have like 2,000, I guess, is what it comes if you do all the school contact stuff. But we're going to go to the town of Durham and ask them for their list, and also to the Lee people and whatever the Madbury group is as well, so that hopefully we can build a really robust data list, and that when we start sending things out, we'll be ready for the opportunity. Next, Dr. Morris talked about, he's written a column, it's going to go out, so we can continue that through the year and work on updating. As I said, we're going to meet again in 2 weeks. I would hope that the scheduling element gets out pretty quickly, that we can, because that'll just allow us all to kind of know what's going on. So that's our communications meeting. It was
Thank
really
you. Wow, I was there.
Oh, actually, I have another one, by the way.
Oh, yeah?
Is there anybody
You do.
else that's like... Okay, so the second of my my subcommittees I went to is the ABC. And I would say that I'd characterize that there's some uneasiness amongst the ABC because we've changed the format of how they're doing things. Before they had administrators meet with just them, and now they're going to be coming in with us as board members. And so there's some anxiety whether their input is valued, whether, is it going to work. And I tried to tell them, look, this is the first time I have ever gone through a school budget session. So I sympathize with your anxiety because I have it too. And I think that we're really fortunate in Oyster River. I can't think of many communities in the state. If you were to say, can you grab a couple of former legislators, a guy who runs a college down in Massachusetts. We have a facilities guy. I mean, there's just an amazing array of talent that has volunteered and is dying to have some input to make sure that we do the best job that we can on the budget. As I said, I tried to reassure them, and I think it'll work out. And I think that as we get into the October meetings and it takes care of itself, that things will work out. So that was our meeting.
Great, thank you.
I just wanted, I think it's a great opportunity for the ABC to come back if we, as part of this new market ad hoc committee, to, some ideas on what the budget would be and taxes for those communities and our communities. That's the kind of thing that's,
well, we of course, written in our charter, there is always the element that we can, if there's something that we'd like ABC to further look at or to help with, then we just have to say what it is. Yeah. So the possibility totally exists.
Great, thank you. Motion to approve minutes of 8:15, 12, and a special meeting 8:28, 12.
So moved.
Moved by Krista, seconded by Tom. Discussion? Any corrections, deletions?
I got it.
Hearing none, could I have a show of hands, please? Motion to approve manifests.
Do that?
Do we need a motion?
We don't.
No.
Yeah, that was a miscommunication between me and Wendy.
We need to sign?
Yes,
We
you
do need to sign.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
No,
If we have 4 signed, do we have 4 signatures at this? We don't have any. Yep. so
We don't
send
have
that
any?
around. We'll send
Yes.
that
On
around.
the last vote, I didn't vote because I wasn't here.
Exactly. We actually should kind of.
On the
You
minutes?
want the separation of
We
the,
weren't there for the other one.
On the minutes, is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
Ann? Which one were you absent from?
From the regular meeting.
Okay,
And then I was absent from the special one.
okay, Al, okay. Thank you.
will the minutes so reflect? Thank you. I ran out of ink.
Manifests are a problem, okay?
Make the other side. Don't want anyone not to get their check.
Okay. And after that, it's public input again.
You're calling for public,
We don't need a motion.
Huh?
you're calling public input now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can't we?
Yep.
No. She signed.
Dean Rubin, Lee. Quick, because I want to get home and watch the convention. I noticed you mentioned that you guys were going to engage AEC again as part of the Siemens thing. You might recall they were the ones who scared us all, saying basically the roof was falling down and other stuff where I think somebody actually asked if we should evacuate the meeting. Well, I don't know, maybe somebody wants to look at the report before they scare everybody else again, because we had a consultant here a few months later who kind of retracted all the scary stuff. So it was sort of weird. So you got to watch AEC, I guess. About Newmarket. Well, just to start the community discussion, it's sort of, I mean, I like the idea of tuition students and, saving programs, and the difficult thing is it's concentrated at the top levels, grades 6 through 12 here, where our enrollment issues seem more severe at the elementary levels. So maybe you can make a deal to they have to throw in an elementary kid with every. But slightly more seriously on Newmarket, it'd be great if you guys can get their enrollment projections. We'd love to see those. And I guess the last thing I'll say about Newmarket is I did the thing that Krista warned us against and considered the quality of the kids. Oh boy, it's been a while now, but I pooled their middle school and high school kids with our middle school and high school kids and recalculated where we would end up in the No Child Left Behind rankings, and I think we would fall about 3 spots. I'd have to go back and look exactly, but it was 3 or 4 spots. And that's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you.
John Collins from Lee. I'm with Dennis. I hate doing this. I didn't make it for the beginning of the meeting. It was quite a sunset, though. I think you guys missed it. Did you see it? Woo! Anyway, I wanted to talk about policy. First, it matters. I mean, it's your guide. There's law, policy, and practice, and right there in the middle is policy. I'm concerned about, I'm curious about, and jumping to conclusions, I'm concerned about the process. You had the first read tonight, but there was no read and no discussion. There wouldn't have been, I think, except the student rep jumped in just before the show of hands, and then Al chimed in to agree on one issue. But so I certainly hope there will be my concern is the next meeting will be a rubber stamp and approval. The next meeting should, since it wasn't here, should be a thorough discussion, deliberation, with an expectation that it's just as likely that a policy be sent back or rejected or amended as that it be approved. And I hope there's not some assumption that you're just going to have a little discussion and approve these policies, because then what you've done is abdicated to a committee one of the most important things this board does, and that is make policy. So I just hope that's the way it's going to happen. And comments about the student rep policy, that line that the board reserves the right to whatever, to get rid of the student representative, I really don't like that. I hope it doesn't just slide by. What I would like to hear next week is how that line got in that policy. There were 3 people on that committee. Whose idea was it? How the sentence found its way into that policy, the recommended policy, that is. Who it was and why. What's the thinking behind it? Be open and transparent about this, please. And I call upon the rest of the board to require that happen at the next meeting. One of the members of the policy committee did, I think in response to that brief discussion, make the comment in quoting, in many cases, and then the rest I can only paraphrase, in many cases we follow the lead or use as a guide the state, New Hampshire School Board Association policies, but didn't say whether that was the case for that sentence. So I really want to know how it got in there, and I really hope that it finds its way out before the end of the discussion on it at the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
First, thank you again for having a second public comment. I realize it still seems to be a controversial subject, and I hope that it can just become a return to the tradition it has been for decades. As far as the policies go, as I noted in my document that I sent to you, New Hampshire School Board Association does a fine job of producing boilerplate policies, but they're not the gospel. They don't represent the specific values of this district. They don't represent the lessons that we've learned, that we've accumulated. As Kay Morgan said, that the policy we have on the students is a very affirming sense of the value we put in our students and the trust and respect we put in our students, and to replace that with a boilerplate that people have talked about that. So don't look at NHSBA as simply a gospel you should take forward with. Try to factor in what we value as a district. Secondly, I'm amplifying what John has said. I'm a little concerned about the process of policy. I really want to be sure that, particularly these policies that codify the right to know of our citizens, have citizen involvement in that process, and that we can observe what you think about them and the feedback you put to that. So I hope you are transparent with that discussion, and I look forward to observing it. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Anybody else? Okay, agenda planning. Any issues, topics? And we have future meeting dates. And yes.
Do we have times for those budget workshops on the 24th, the 31st, and the November 28th? Are they just regular 6, 7 to?
No. Okay. And with that, I'm not doing too badly.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Is there a second? And no discussion. All those in favor? We're adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank
A lot of good conversation, too.
you.